now officially call to order the Tuesday, September 21st, 2021 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. And pursuant to the extension of Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this public meeting of the Town of Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can access this meeting while in progress by Zoom video communications. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by telephone, cell phone, or personal computer using Zoom. And per tradition, we will start with a roll call. I am Brian Barabee.
Emily Winter.
Bill Payne.
Jillian Glasanos.
And Rebecca Longball. Also a few guidelines for our participants. Please utilize the chat or raised hand function to address the board. Please remain on mute until myself or one of the board members has addressed you or requested you to speak. And additionally, participants are required to display your first and last names for record keeping purposes. So if you have not done so already, please do so now. I'm not noticing anyone who has yet to do that, so I appreciate that. And Brian, I will hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much. All right, so first up this evening, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a request for determination of applicability for 257 Main Street, map 4.E, parcel 48, the proposed removal of approximately 8 trees. Rebecca is, do we have somebody representing the applicant this evening? Greg, could you give us a quick rundown of this, of what's actually being proposed here?
Absolutely. I'm not sure how to lower my, oh, you did it. Okay. Thanks for your time this evening. My name is Greg Roy with Dillison Roy, and I'm representing the applicants this evening, excuse me. It's been a long couple days. And they are on the call as well. So if there's any questions, they are here as well. But in short, the applicants called me several months back. They had started to do some clearing on the property behind the house, immediately behind the house, and received some correspondence from your commission relative to the possible presence of a wetland in the back of the property. They immediately contacted my office, and we proceeded to take quite a bit of time to get to them because our schedule was pretty busy. So I wanted to first say that there's quite a delta between that correspondence and this evening, and that's not because of any fault of the applicants. That's because of our schedule being extraordinarily busy over the summer and continuing currently. So, but be that as it may, we visited the site to review for the presence of wetlands, and we performed an existing conditions survey, which you have in front of you. And this site is fairly well, not completely unheard of, but a little bit unique in that most of the times when you think about a wetland, particularly as a new homeowner, you think of wetlands being down below your property, sort of down at the bottom of the hill, so to speak. This is a wetland system that's actually above the house vertically. So it sits in the woods at an elevation that's higher than the property, than the sort of the nominal grades in the backyard and the foundations and driveways and things. And so this particular applicant does not have a large number of years experience on the property. They're fairly new to the house. And I think we're not aware that there was a wetland system in the back. And quite frankly, even as a professional, if you didn't see this thing in a spring runoff condition or in the conditions that we've had in the summer of 2021 with 25 plus inches of rain since the beginning of July, you probably would not notice this as a wetland. It's a pretty tough one to spot. So I just wanted to give the commission a little bit of a heads up here on that. But be that as it may, in the back, you can see the shaded portion on your screen with some dot hatch. Yes, that is an area that exhibits wetland, bordering vegetated wetland qualities relative to hydrology, soils, and vegetation. And so we have established that as a wetland. We hung some flags in the field and we've located them and shown the associated buffer zones on the plan, which you can see. We have the 25-foot zone per your bylaw, and then we have the 100-foot buffer zone, which is the outer one, which just clips the back edge of the existing garage. And then you can kind of see there's a line right above where you're at, where the existing limit of clearing is. Yep, right there, the squiggly sort of arced line that's in there. Again, like I said, the applicant contacted our office, and we worked with them even prior to starting the field work at the site, and they stopped doing the clearing that they had been doing prior to getting before your commission. But they do indeed intend to take a few more trees down. We have identified those on the plan. They are all pine trees. Some of them are dead. And just in general, in the backyard, they wish to kind of clean it up. It's pretty, this is one that, it might be worth, I don't know. It might be, if you haven't been to the site, it might be worth a quick drive by or a quick site meeting out there. It's a bit of a unique case given the location of the wetlands from a horizontal standpoint and elevation standpoint. And the backyard is quite small, and they wish to sort of clean that up, smooth it off, formalize a lawn area, and take some of the larger pine trees down, which are in fact endangering the structures. I mean, if any of you are familiar with some of those taller pines, they're quite towering, and that is in fact the case at this site. So generally speaking, that's what they're proposing. Right along the woods line, right at the, I'm trying to describe it and I can't point, but right in there's a swale that exists right in there that actually was excavated by hand, that channelizes the water, in the seasonal conditions when that wetland overflows. It truly runs down right towards the house. I mean, you kind of got to see it. So there was some work done in the past to formalize that as a little hand dug swale, which appears to be working. The applicant may sort of formalize that a little bit more, with maybe make it look a little bit nicer with some trap rock or something in there that sort of helps to formalize that a little bit. But what happens is that conveys the water down around the back of the garage and actually out to a driveway culvert, a double barrel driveway culvert that goes underneath the adjacent part of the common driveway down about maybe 150 feet further to the right of where the cursor is now. So it's certainly a drainage pattern that's been there since they built the house and built the driveway, because they put the culverts in. So certainly something that's been there for certainly since the houses were constructed. So so that's it. We filed the RDA because of the nature of the work. We didn't think that it rose to the level of a notice of intent, but I'm happy to take any questions and try to answer them as best as I can.
Thanks, Greg. Can I ask, do you know what year the house was built, or approximate?
Boy, Great Farm. I don't. I'm guessing 20 years.
Okay.
If either Michael or Jessica have that information, feel free to add it. But I'm guessing.
Sorry, hi, it's Jess and Mike. We wanted to, so here's our video too. Yeah, so my house was built in 98, so I'm assuming that probably they put the road in earlier, possibly in the culvert.
A little north of 20 years. Brian.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I tend to agree, Greg. It's something I kind of would like to get eyes on. But I want to see if there's any additional initial questions right now from members of the commission. Any members of the commission have questions?
I do, Brian.
Please,
I
Emily.
definitely would like to get out and see the site. But I also wanted to ask, because what we were looking at was tree removal, and then I believe a comment was made about leveling things out. I'm just curious, is there any plan to regrade, level? Or is this solely tree removal that we're reviewing and approving? And I'd just like to kind of understand that total scope before we get out to the site. And, as we're considering this project.
Absolutely. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I'll address that.
Please.
I appreciate that. At the time of the filing, we had understood, our office had understood this to be about the tree clearing. As I've been working with the applicants over the last couple of weeks, they've indicated that they would like to do some grading in there. I don't think it's within the buffer zone here. I don't think it's too significant. And the unique thing, and we can certainly memorialize that on the plan. That's something that sort of came up last week, and I didn't want to put a new plan on record with your commission without you having enough time to sort of digest it before tonight's meeting. And I figured you might want to go on site anyway. But the unique part, as I said, with this filing, is that all of the runoff flows from the wetland down away from the wetland. So if you were to do grading in that backyard, unlike a traditional situation where you'd have an erosion control issue running towards the wetland area, it actually goes the opposite direction. So it's a little bit unique, and I think if you're on site, you kind of be able to see that.
Is the wetland in ledge or something?
There's definitely ledge. Yeah, I mean, we didn't core, but you can, there's a big exposed ledge, where we're showing those 4 trees behind the garage area. It's quite steep. So
Okay.
there definitely is some ledge area there, yes. Obviously, it's a full basement on the house. So I think what you have in this area is typical of Bolton. You have folds of ridges of ledge, and then you have pockets of deeper overburden material, which I think is what's happening on the site.
And when that overflows, it tends to flow into that swale, I think is what you were defining it.
Yeah, it comes down through the woods and it flows. It really flows almost it takes a line almost directly towards the back of the house. And then, through the sort of hand grading that's been done in the past, it's been diverted then right along where the cursors, where Rebecca's cursor is, and then goes right over to where those culverts are on the driveway, which is further down downstream. So it's
And how
And
would
that's-
any grading affect that flow? Would it affect that flow at all?
I think it would act to sort of, so there's pockets of sort of low areas in there that I think pond, when we get, when you've had a summer like we've had, and you have 4 or 5 inches of rain with a tropical storm, I think you get puddles in there. So grading it would all be graded towards this. We would propose, I think, to grade it towards the swale. And of course, we need to memorialize this on a plan. I totally get that.
Yeah, I think we need to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I understand
Hard
that.
to see.
Yep, I understand that. But I think in the field, if you'd like to go out, I thought you might, and I think you'll be able to see it. In this case, I think it would really help to visualize it. I'm not saying we won't put it on a plan, but I think both of those things will help you.
Okay. Any other initial questions from members of the commission?
I have one more question, and I know we'll see this on site, but the swale that you had mentioned, the potential for putting riprap or what was it? Yeah, trap rock.
Yeah.
Is that currently vegetated?
No, not really.
Dirt, just exposed dirt?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And it doesn't really seem like it's eroding to us. But I just think that it would dress it up a little bit. It'll avoid any potential for any soil migration downstream. And just, generally help it. It doesn't look to me like the velocities are too severe. Again, you'll be able to see it in the field. It's pretty flat, pretty level. It's not a severe slope on the swale longitudinally, but it's also not very big. It's only like a foot or two wide. It was sort of hand excavated. There's some larger rocks that are difficult to remove, which are probably pieces of the ledge as it dives down. And it was constructed right on the toe of the slope, right at the edge of the lawn. You'll be able to see it. But we thought the trap rock would do a couple of things. It would sort of act to define the swale a little bit more. As I said, it's a little bit in places, a little bit undefined. It would act to help with any potential, albeit minor, but any potential for soil migration or erosion. And it would also, just from a visual standpoint, I think, clean that up a little bit and make it a little bit more, a little bit less of an eyesore in the backyard.
Great. I'm guessing you have the trees marked or can mark the trees that you're proposing to remove.
Absolutely. Yep.
It sounds like a lot of the features will be recognizable. Is there anything other commission members would like to see marked if we were to go out there for a site visit? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's really anything. You can see the flags. The only thing we have not done yet is stake the property. We do intend to do that. Certainly not a requirement of the filing, but we've been asked to do that by the applicants. We haven't had a chance to circle back on that. But the trees, we can certainly mark the trees if they're not marked already. I can't remember. The house and the garage are pretty self-explanatory. You'll be able to see
where
the swale. You'll be able to see the limit of where the edge of the wood line is. It's pretty self-explanatory.
Why were those 8 trees selected? Are there other larger trees in the area also?
Those are the closest ones. They're pretty tall, as I said, pretty tall pines. There's some in the front of the house that they'd like to take as well, but those aren't within the buffer zone area, so they're not on your plan. Those are the ones that they want to take down in the jurisdictional area.
So that they are large enough that if they fell, they would hit the garage or the house?
Oh yeah, I would say so. And a couple of them, like I said, are dead. So they're, they need to really be removed anyway.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, please.
I would also suggest that the applicant or their representative stake or include a stake at least at each corner of the limit of work that they're proposing at this time, or this line of wattle, it looks like.
Yeah.
Just so that when the commission's out there, they can see. And in addition to that, if they have an assessment by an arborist done on the trees, that would be helpful to submit to the commission as well, just for further description and understanding of why those trees need to be removed.
I would also, I don't, either on a plan or out on the site before we go to the site visit, understand what the extent of leveling and regrading is proposed.
We can get you a revised plan for that in relatively short order. So in a few days.
Main Street run along the front of the house there, trying to figure out, okay, so tree warden wouldn't have really any, okay.
Yeah, it's none of this is in the right of way.
Yeah.
All of this would be off
Back
the
end, all
town
that.
right away, right? Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like we're going to try to set up a site visit to get out there.
Okay.
Get a few things to mark, and you can try to get us those revised plans if possible.
Oh, we'll get them to you. Yep.
All that said, are you okay with us continuing?
Yes.
All right. Excellent. Rebecca, October 5th, the next meeting.
Yes, 7:30 is the first time frame.
All right. You anticipated question 2. All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 257 Main Street until our next public hearing, Tuesday, October 5th at 7:30 PM. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am, and I myself.
Okay, thanks very much. Can you let me know, is it COVID-19 protocols allow myself to attend the site visit?
Yeah,
Okay, I'd like to
We-
know, to see if I can be on site with you.
sure. So I will coordinate, I'll copy you on the email correspondence once I hear from the commission regarding their individual availability. And then I'll coordinate with the property owner and copy you on those coordination emails. Right
Okay.
now, as far as I'm aware, we do not have any restrictions other than what typically is being advertised, as far as COVID-19 protocols go. But
enough.
of course, just being mindful of who you're around out on site.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right, Rebecca, are you ready to move on to the next?
Yes.
Okay. Excuse me. That said, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a notice of intent for Meadow Road, lots 7 and 8, map 4.D, parcel 101, a proposed shared driveway, grading, and associated drainage. Is someone here representing the applicant this evening, or the applicant themselves?
I am Jack Maloney from Dillis and Roy, and I also have Ryan Proctor, who's one of our engineers that worked on this project as well. I don't know, you're all familiar with the site. If you go up Long Hill Road, you take a left onto Meadow Road, and it's on the right-hand side about 200 or 300 feet. So where Rebecca has her cursor, if you go back to the left, is where the intersection of Long Hill Road and Meadow Road would be. So if going along Meadow Road, you're heading back out to Route 117 from left to right, as it's shown there. There is, this has been kind of a work in progress type of project. The old farmhouse, Wilson Farm, that was on Long Hill Road, was subdivided into 3 parcels a number of years ago. Lot number 3 on Long Hill Road was before you a couple of times, most recently for Mr. Jim Houseman, that's currently starting construction. I think I went by there today, and there was a road entrance that was starting to be constructed over there. So due to bylaws and whatnot, the other remaining parcel to the west of the farmhouse is all the property that's on Meadow Road. Number of months ago, we had subdivided lot number 4, which is the next lot up from lot number 7, and that had been sold off. And we've been working with the new owner for house design and site design on that. And then there are 2 other lots 4 and 5 that are even further north of the property than what we're looking at. So 7 and 8, it's kind of a goofy numbering system, but it all had to do with how the lots had originally come about. But 7 and 8 are right here in front of you. We have a common driveway that comes in off of Meadow Road, and then it splits. So it goes to lot 7 to the left and lot 8 to the right as you're standing on Meadow Road. And as Rebecca has, that red line is the limit of work. At the on the slope itself, we have somewhat of a grading use of grading from the driveway down to that red line, which where the silt fence or the wattles would be, and then we have the driveway coming up and around the septic system. Some of that grading that you see in that blue area is reserve area grading, and not all of it will be in place at that point, but some of it will be. And that blue line indicates a 100-foot buffer, so the septic systems are just above that and outside the buffer zone. The house obviously is further uphill, along with the well, which is on the backside of the house, which is further east of what we're looking at. We have along the upper part of the driveway, the lower part of the slope, there is a 2-foot wide, 2-foot deep crushed stone recharge trench. We have a detail on the right side of the plan that you're looking at. The material up in this area is pretty sandy material. We expect some very good infiltration back into the ground. And we also have at the very entrance on either side, we have 2 catch basins that will dump out into basically what they're called mini basins, I guess, down in the low areas, because we can't discharge any water onto the pavement from the driveway. So those 2 basins will catch the water coming off of the lower part of the entrance and ship it back into those basins for more recharge. There is, you can see a little green area that runs along the side of Meadow Road. There is a vegetated wetland in there, and there's actually a culvert, I believe, that goes underneath the road right where those guardrails are shown. More to the right of where it says Meadow Road, Rebecca. Yeah, right in there. And that would cross over to the street towards the north side. And I guess that's pretty much it.
Sure. Can I ask, do we have a larger map? It's, I hate to say it, but and again, we'd probably want a site visit for this, but it's hard to tell with that shared driveway. Where's the other driveway going to? Like, it's hard for us to know, is there a better place to put the driveway that avoids the resource areas altogether? If I can't see where the houses are, where the lots are, I can't even see where the driveway ends. You know what I mean? Why not put the driveway straight up the middle there? And then branch it
well,
left and right to each house. I mean, and before you answer it, like, can I see a full map? I mean, this is a real small section that doesn't really let us answer the question of, is there a more practicable way to do this? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, that's
yep,
the first thing we're supposed to look at is, can we just take it out? And I can't tell anything from this map.
okay.
I can tell a lot, but I can't tell, answer the first question of, can we just avoid the resource area altogether?
Rebecca, can I share my screen?
Please.
Yes, if you bear with me one moment.
Sure.
Okay, you should be able to now, I believe.
Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
so
I can.
so here's the entranceway. We come up and we split to the left and come around up to lot 7, which is the houses up in here. And we come up to the right at the split and come all across the top of the slope to the house on the right. So the grading that you see, this ghost grading, is the reserve area grading, which is not going to be in place and will not be there at this time. That is just to show basically where the grades would work if we had to put that in at some point. So the grading that Ryan has designed for this driveway work with the reserve area. So there wouldn't be any additional grading that would be required for the driveway if the reserve areas were to be put in at a later date. So it looks a little confusing, but I just wanted you to see that.
And again, I understand it could make more sense when we're out on site, but just initially, why not bring the driveway straight in and then branch it left or right, past where those fields are, and maybe switch where the fields go? Does it have to go to the right
well,
immediately when we go in? It
yeah,
can't come straight out and
so
then go to the right to the house?
If you can see where my hand is here, the cursor, there's the property line that runs between the two of them. So we have a leach field here, we have a leach field here, and then the reserve area for lot 7 and the reserve area for lot 8. The reason why we did this is because of the slope. It's a little bit steeper in through this area to bring a driveway straight in. So we came up this slope. This lower area, we're at, I think, about 5%, and then we creep up to about 10% coming up around this corner. So it does get pretty steep in this area here, Brian. So that's why we decided to do 2 separate driveways versus 1 driveway.
I see. Well, I'm just wondering that the house, the one that goes, I'm sorry, looking at my screen to the right. So the one that goes away from the jurisdictional area.
Yep.
Why can't that continue around to the other house and connect them in the back rather than connecting in the front?
Come up around the back. We haven't even really thought about it and looked at it. We kind of wanted to have the houses have the houses facing the road versus, I mean, you'd end up having a driveway come in the backyard, so to
Sure.
speak.
Yeah, yeah.
So I do understand your concern. I mean, that's something between now and the site walk that we could definitely run by the client to see if, you know, they'd be up to something like that, but you know, that would, I guess, be entirely up to them and how they want to determine that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, personally, I think I would learn a lot from a site walk, and we'll probably try to schedule that. But before that said time, I just want to, other commission members have initial questions or thoughts?
I have to agree with Brian. I feel like that driveway could be reconfigured in a way and could potentially save money because it would be half the length. So I'm looking at this and trying to understand why, if the septics were kicked out to the left a little bit, and as Brian said, the driveway came up to the right of the septic into the other side of the house. I guess I'm not understanding why that's not an option.
What do you mean by kicked out?
So if you're going to have to move the septics over a bit. So if you're basically bringing the driveway up along the property line between the two lots, and then you're moving the septic over. Is that
the
something that's
septic-
possible? And then you're bringing your driveway, you're not in the buffer zone at that point.
Okay, I see where you're getting at. I'm not sure if there's enough room in there with all the grading and what we need to climb up here. But I do understand your concern. Again, that's something that we could take a look at. Ryan, are you with us still?
I am. Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan, you said.
Ryan,
I
Ryan,
am as well.
had you taken a look at that, or we just kind of went with this because we had some preliminary sketches in our file that this is something similar to what we were going to do years ago? I think that's,
This was based on the preliminary, but I know that this was done because rather than straight up the slope, in order to keep it below 10% and more reasonable, we found that it's better to kind of swing it wide in a sense and kind of take the curse off the slope of the driveway. I think that's why we had gone the separate route here.
pretty sure that's why that's why we did it, is to take the slope curse off the driveway. If we were to come straight up, that driveway would be fairly steep coming up through there because it's a shorter run versus a longer run.
Okay. Other initial questions? Rebecca, do you have any initial thoughts or questions?
I would reiterate that it sounds like the commission's looking for an alternative analysis on this, which I think is completely appropriate. I think it would be helpful for the commission to receive a plan that shows the parcel as a whole, so that the commission can clearly see what other areas you have to work with. Although I do appreciate the work that was put into this plan. And I agree that a site visit, I think, would be very relevant. And if the sort of major items could be staked out on site so that the commission could visualize what is being proposed with this set of plans, unless between now and the site visit, your applicant is comfortable revising to an alternative analysis that you'll be submitting for the next meeting. I think that would be appropriate if they're comfortable with something else that would pull the work outside of the jurisdictional area.
Okay.
Rebecca, any members of the public here tonight to comment on this?
Again, to the public, you can use the raise hand function, physically wave, and I will try and see you, or use the chat function. I'm not seeing any virtual raised hands. I'm not seeing anything in the chat function.
Rebecca,
I'm seeing Richard unmuting himself. Ryan, would you like Richard to speak?
If Richard has a question, please.
Am Emily talked about changing the driveway so that it came up between those two yellow hashed lines. What would the grade of that road be? If that driveway, what would it be?
Well,
You know-
we'd have to work it out on paper first, Mr. Davis, before we could, get you that. I mean, we'd have to figure out the length of driveway versus the the differential and elevation from where it's going to dump into the garage and the parking area down to the road.
Okay, I thought I might have misunderstood you. I thought you said that area would probably be too steep, and I just wanted clarification on that.
Well, it would be because it's a shorter run. So typically if it's a shorter run over the same elevation, it's going to be a steeper driveway. We also have to maintain certain elevations to accommodate the septic system as well.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else, Rebecca?
I see no one.
All right. So then, unless commission members see reason otherwise, if it's fine with the applicant to continue this to the next public hearing so that we have a chance to actually get out there and do a quick site visit, would you be amenable to that?
Yep. If you could give me some sort of a timeline, because I need to put in an order for our survey department to get out there and stake I would imagine you want the house boxes, the septic system, and the center line of the driveway.
Yeah.
So I would need, a few days notice for them to at least get it on their schedule to get that done. Are you looking at during the week or weekend walk?
Typically, we've gone during the week recently. I'm usually open to either or, depending on what works for the applicant and what works for the majority of commission members. I'm assuming you'd like us to get in before the next meeting.
Yeah, that would obviously be great. I mean,
So-
what I could do is I can find out from our survey department when it's going to be done. And then I can let Rebecca know, then she can let the commission know when everything will be staked. So this way we're not holding up. I'd like to be there, with Ryan, if we could, on the sidewalk to answer any questions that you may have that day,
Sure.
and go from there.
That's how, Rebecca, would that all work for you?
That would all work. I am unfortunately not available on weekends, but I can certainly go out during the week if the commission's only available on the weekends, or if the surveyor is only available prior to the weekend and therefore the commission following up with a site visit then. I would say that the commission is most likely not going to be out to that site this week. So would a week or say next Thursday maybe give you enough time to get surveyors out? I know you said you had to double check, but do you think that seems
Yeah.
reasonable?
Yeah, that would be reasonable. And again, once I nail it down, I will let you know when they're going to be there.
Okay,
And then we can
perfect.
either, meet you Thursday, late afternoon, or however, Friday sometime or whatever. Go from there. Rebecca, one last thing. When is the next scheduled hearing?
I believe Brian was just about to
Oh,
announce that. So
sorry.
it is on October 5th, but I think Brian was about to make a motion so that you get a time and date specific.
Thank you.
Oh, and you were fine with us continuing?
Yes.
Correct? Okay, in that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for Meadow Road Lot 7 and 8, map 4.D, parcel 101, till our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 5th at 7:45 PM. Do I hear a second for that?
Second,
All right, all those in favor, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, and I myself.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, are you ready for me to continue, Rebecca?
Yes.
Okay. That's it. At this point, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a request for determination of applicability for 243 Berlin Road, map 3.C, parcel 11, a proposed garage extension to replace a lean tube structure. Rebecca, are the applicants or someone representing the applicants here this evening?
The applicant is present, Joe Brazo. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. I have asked to unmute you. I'm not sure if you're calling in or not, but regardless, I will try to provide the best summary I can. The applicant had reached out to basically put an extension on the rear of the garage that exists on this lot here on the corner. And, oh, here he is, Joe.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we used to have a few lean-tos that we kept equipment and stuff, and over the time they deteriorated and they weren't safe, so I took them down. And I like to add on to the garage to store the equipment and stuff.
All right.
Joe, where on the lot is the garage compared to your house? I know is it the structure that's at the very corner of your lot?
Well, that is actually the second lot. The house is on the okay, where you got the pointer at the green
Okay, you
trailer
can see
there.
it. Yep, this,
On the other side of that trailer
yep,
is the property line, and the house is up above that.
right. So where,
The
where
garage
did
is
you,
right next to the green trailer. No, yeah, down below. Yeah, next one down.
this?
Right
Okay.
there.
So this is where the lean-to structure was off of.
It was in back of,
Okay.
of the garage.
Okay. So this is the area you were looking to then extend and replace that structure.
Right.
Okay.
Hmm.
Great.
And as I'm looking at this map, is the whole property itself in the resource area? Is that how I'm trying to see where the offsets are? What's jurisdictional to us, or?
Yes, so
It's
basically
okay.
the entirety of this lot is jurisdictional to the Conservation Commission. It is outside of the riverfront area. It is within the 100-foot offset or buffer and the adjacent upland resource area under our local bylaw.
Okay.
And as he stated, and you can see with this overlay, this is from the town website. Here's the overlay that you can compare it to. Here's the road, but the physical aerial photo is here. So what he is referring to is that this is actually on the separate lot.
Gotcha.
This lot, which he also owns. But the overlays are a little moved.
All right. Any commission members have initial questions?
Is the request to enlarge the garage structure then? Is that what it is?
Yes.
And what are you storing it now? Or what are your plans?
I want to store and my equipment in it and stuff, and I also want to put an archery range in for my son in it.
So how many feet back are you extending the garage? Or is the plan to extend the garage?
I like to extend it 50 feet.
In the area that you'd be extending into, what does that function? Is that existing lawn now? Is that, native growth?
well,
What do we?
Yeah, it's a gravel area where the lean tubes were.
Yeah.
And then past that is existing lawn and actually like a road that we use to bring the wood around back to the house
Okay.
that we use for burning.
And is the garage going to have a foundation? What is the proposed construction of this garage?
The building department told me I had to put a foundation up. I want to go with a prefab steel building.
Okay. Other initial questions?
What will the floor of the,
It will be concrete.
So is it a concrete slab foundation or will it be a typical like regular foundation?
Doug
I
Foundation.
wanted to do a slab concrete, but he said I had to do footings and at least 4 feet below the frost level.
Okay, thank you.
Other initial questions from commission members? All right. Rebecca, do you have any initial questions or thoughts?
I just was curious about the flooring. I'm also curious about existing conditions on site. I have not been to the site personally. I've driven by it when I was going to site visits at the culvert that was redone up the road. But outside of that, I'm not extremely familiar with the site, so I think the commission may benefit from a site visit if that's feasible.
It was kind of thing to say. I'm trying to picture the full area too, and for the applicant, if we do, and I think we'll probably go the route that we'd like to come out and take a look real quick. If you could mark out kind of on site where you think the final garage will be, kind of put the post or stakes in so we can kind of see the extent of where you're thinking the final garage will end up being. I should ask also, Rebecca, is there any members of the public here tonight to comment on this particular hearing?
I'm not seeing anyone.
Okay.
Is the wetland, I'm just trying to understand, is the wetland behind the home? Where are the wetlands?
Yes, yep, so the wetlands are back here.
Okay, okay, so that 100-foot buffer is coming off of the rear of the property.
Yes,
Okay. So, okay, so if I'm looking at the plan on the right,
this is the garage.
so is this outside of the buffer?
No,
So what is the, I guess, what is the white with the blue outline? Is that the wetland?
this is the riverfront area.
Oh, okay. And then
Right.
the light blue is the 100-foot buffer,
Correct.
greenish blue. Okay, okay.
Yeah. And the garage too is just outside of a mapped floodplain as well.
Okay.
All right. There was nobody here from the public looking to make comment, correct? I'm sorry.
I did not see anyone.
All right. That said, would it be possible for us to schedule I'm asking the applicant, would you mind if we continue this meeting just so we can schedule a site visit, get out, take a look on site, and again, if you could just mark out the boundaries of where the finished garage will be. Would you be amenable to that?
Well, if that'll get me the permit, yeah.
Hopefully it will. All right. So that said, I'd like to continue the public hearing for 243 Berlin Road, map 3.C, parcel 11, until our next public hearing, Tuesday, October 5th at 8:00 p.m. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
aye,
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, once I coordinate with the commission on their availability for a site visit, I will reach out to you to just make sure it's not in conflict with any of your schedule and to make sure that you have staked the proposed corners of the garage, okay?
Yes. One thing though, it's actually lot 12.
Yes, yep,
Gotcha.
so, okay. So it's 3C 12, which is also associated with the 243 property. Right, you own both parcels, Joe?
Yes,
Yes, okay. I do appreciate that clarification, though.
Okay. All right, Rebecca, are you ready for our next?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. All right, so the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the open public meeting for a request for determination of applicability for 12 Deer Path, Marshall, map 6.B parcel 152, a proposed pool, landscaping, and deck. Are the applicants or one of the applicants reps here this evening just to give us an update?
Scott Hayes here, Foresight Engineering, representing the David and Karen Yasway. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, would you like me to just go ahead?
Yeah, Scott, if that would be great. Sorry, thank you.
Okay, sure. So we were here 2 weeks ago. We were kind of an issue with the pool equipment in the riverfront area. Wanted to see if we could get that out of the area, which we've coordinated with McCarthy Pools and found a suitable location where it will be accessible for service, et cetera. And it's outside the riverfront area. So we revised the plan just to relocate the pool pad, the 8x20, 8x3 pool equipment pad that was on the back side of the pool formerly in the last plan revision. We moved it up to an existing mulched landscaped area. I don't know if you can zoom in, Rebecca, to the house. So basically it's tucked in right in the rear of the garage, in the corner where the porch is, that purple block there that she's circling. We've moved it there, which is about 20 or so feet beyond the riverfront area, and confirm that location will be adequate, will function for the pool. So we got that out of there and just added that, moved that pool pad to that location, and that's it. That's all I've got for you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Do we know, talking riverfront, do we know, I know we're still considering this as an RDA. Are we under the 5,000 square feet or 10% that can be disturbed, considering the original building plus anything proposed now?
Well, so with respect to that, we filed under 1058-6, which is a minor activity within the riverfront. So this is a previously developed riverfront area. And it's conversion of lawn landscaping to other accessory use for residential purposes, which is why we filed an RDA and not a notice of intent. If this were an undisturbed wooded area and we were clearing it out to do this backyard and pool, we would be required to meet those performance standards. But because it's an existing lawn area, it's a conversion of one improved area or altered area to another accessory use. So that's why it's an RDA. We're not expanding the alteration of the riverfront area other than what's already being used currently.
I see, but was it factored into the original calculations? The lawn area must have been, right?
As far as alteration goes, we're just showing the square footages of the areas of lawn and landscape that are being, converted from lawn to patio to pool.
Right.
Yeah.
But I believe you were saying that it's already altered.
Right.
It
So
was
if you
originally altered.
If you were to look at alteration, I mean, we've calculated the riverfront alteration or the conversion at I think it's 1,865 square feet of conversion of lawn landscaping to other accessory residential uses.
All right.
Can I ask a clarification question, Brian,
Please.
related to that? So Scott, in relation to the numbers that you have on this plan here, so the total area within riverfront is the total area on site on this parcel, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then where you have 10% of riverfront area as 4,762 square feet, are you saying that in relation to the area that you have proposed alterations to, that is just listing the 10%, it's not totaling the total alteration that currently exists within the site, correct?
Well, we're not proposing to alter the site beyond the 1,865 square feet. So I mean, we did the 10% riverfront area calculation just as just sort of a regulatory kind of, check in the table, but.
So the total, and I'm sorry if you just stated it and I missed it, but the total alteration on site, including what's already been altered, is what? So including the current lawn, I know you're looking to switch up some lawn with this pool and proposed patio area, but what number I'm looking for and the commission's looking for is.
Yeah, we didn't evaluate the site for compliance with the work that occurred 25 years ago so we didn't calculate the currently improved riverfront portion of the lot. We just did a budget of what we're altering from what was already existing. So I don't know that that's relevant to this application.
I thought and I apologize, I thought you had stated that number at the last meeting. So again, what I'm looking for, and I think what the commission's looking for, is the number relevant to the altered square footage on site within the riverfront area. And to understand what exists now so that they can understand if it does meet minor exempt activities as you proposed. And that should be fairly easy for you to, if you don't have it already, figure out, because it's looking at, right, the deck, it's looking at the existing lawn that you're proposing to put in the pool, and then the patio, right? So whatever the square footage is plus the deck.
As far as demonstrating compliance with the performance standard, I don't understand the relevance of that. This is an area that was previously developed. So what we've done is calculate the areas that we're proposing to alter within the area that's been already developed. And now you're asking what the total riverfront area previously altered in 1990. I don't know when the house was built exactly. It was, I think, around 1998 or so, with a building permit and et cetera. We didn't evaluate the site for compliance to what was built in 1998.
I'm not asking that. So I think there's some confusion here. I'm not trying to start an argument or contest anything. What I'm just looking for, and I think what the commission's looking for, and like I said, I'm pretty sure we brought this up, but the commission just asked the question again. So I'm just asking for reiteration on it. Is the altered area within the riverfront area? We're not saying, did the lawn increase or decrease? We're not talking about anything like that. What the commission needs to determine is two things. One, is it a minor exempt activity? So what was the existing altered area? Maybe a consideration that they need to make that consideration. Then what is the current proposed work? And does it meet the minor exempt activity, or is it beyond that? And then they want to, maybe they issue a negative with conditions versus doing a full-blown notice of intent. But maybe they have to make a different determination and say, you know what, this is jurisdictional, but the commission's asking for a total number, that's all. And I don't understand why that's an issue, I guess, because they're asking for the total altered area within the jurisdictional area, which is very relevant to this project, to make sure that it meets the minor exempt activity.
Well, in order for it to meet the minor exempt activity, you just need to demonstrate that the area that we're converting is less than the 10% of the total riverfront area on the lot. So we state the total riverfront area at 4762 in the table, and we're stating the proposed alteration of that previously altered area at 1865. So I mean, clearly we're, less than half of the total riverfront area on the lot being converted. So I mean, it was my understanding the last hearing, if we relocated the pool equipment out of the riverfront area,
Sure.
we were in good shape here, and now we're getting back to. I mean, I can calculate those areas. I don't know the relevance of them for this application.
We received this information, Brian. We have an email from August 16th with this information that you're asking about, but I'm not clear on whether, I'm not calculating these values, but I'm not clear on whether this is existing alterations are within the riverfront or on the entire lot, but we have all of these numbers. Existing alterations, we have structures, patios and walks, lawn and landscaping, and then the proposed alterations.
Right.
Is that what you're looking for? I mean, we do
Yes.
have
what-
this.
Can you?
Sure.
Sorry.
Let me try
Okay.
quickly, because I think I did get the answer to what I was looking for.
Okay.
And it's basically the proposed alterations that whatever it was, 1,800 square feet is taking place in something that was already calculated as part of the alterations, the overall alterations. In other words, they're only altering an area that's already been calculated into the overall alterations, is what I was trying to find out.
Yeah, I think, the relevant number, would be the 10% of the total riverfront area on the lot. So if we were exceeding, the 4,762 square feet, which would be 10% of the total riverfront area on the lot, then I'd say we wouldn't be subject to, we wouldn't qualify for the exemption in 1058-6, right? But since the alteration is less than the 10%, I mean, clearly we're under the threshold of what we're altering, regardless of how much total riverfront area has been altered on the site, right? So is that clear? I
understand what you're saying, but I don't think you phrased it correctly, but I get what you're trying to bring across there.
I think I'm
It's
in
okay.
the same boat. I think I understand what you're trying to say, and it does make sense to me. All right, any other initial questions or questions from members of the commission? All right.
My
Rebecca
only
was,
comment, Brian, sorry. in
please,
this
Emily,
came
no,
up
go ahead.
Last week about landscaping, that I know where we requested that the pump get moved out of that area. And then Jonathan mentioned that he would be choosing native species. So I thought that as long as we can just confirm that that's still happening. And then I know I had missed the initial meeting, but I think you had requested that area kind of be naturalized. So I think that Jonathan, as the landscape architect, understood and was on board with that, right? So.
Yeah, we will be using 100% native shrubs, grasses, perennials in that area.
Awesome.
Is that written into the proposal currently? Yeah, if, we can condition it tonight, so but.
Mm-hmm. That would be good if you want to condition that.
Okay. All right. Other questions from commission members? All right, Rebecca, your thoughts or any final questions, thoughts?
I have none other than just making sure that the commission, if they are adding conditions, incorporates the native plantings and incorporates something about the pool not being drained toward the resource area, but that it's either removed from the property or drained outside of the jurisdictional area.
And
And
any
then
members
erosion
of the
controls.
public here tonight to comment on this?
I see none.
Okay. All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for 12 Deer Path map 6.B parcel 152. Do I hear a second for closing?
Second,
All right, all those in favor, starting with Emily,
aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an I as well.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. Yeah, Rebecca, like to propose that we make a -3 determination for the request for determination of applicability for, I can't remember, 12 Deer Path with the following conditions. That ongoing pool maintenance, specifically any draining of the pool, be conducted upland and away from the resource areas towards the western side of the property or offsite if possible. That plantings proposed along the back fence or along with this project be native plantings and pollinators if possible, and allowed to naturalize. And I think that's all I have.
Erosion control.
Yes, and proper erosion controls, straw waters will be in place and approved by the town's conservation agent before work begins and maintained throughout the project. Do I hear a second for that determination?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an I myself.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Have a good
Appreciate
night.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Rebecca, let me know if you are ready to continue.
I'm ready when you are.
Okay. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing for notice of intent filed for Century Mill Road, map 3.D, parcel 75. Discussion regarding a proposed construction of 3 single-family homes and the widening and paving of an existing gravel driveway. Do we have an update on this, either via the applicants or Rebecca, if you want to give us an update on where we stand? I know we've been waiting for a while for responses to certain questions, and it looks like we finally gotten some of those back.
Sure, so I will provide a very general summary, and then the applicant may want to go into a little bit further information. Essentially, the applicant had submitted some stormwater calculations and report to address the commission's inquiries from some of the past meetings. That's why it's been continued. In the meantime, our engineer had sent back comments, and then there was a response from the applicant's engineer. And then just late this afternoon, we received a final response from our engineer to the applicant's comments as well. And again, this was all specific to the stormwater calculations and report that had been submitted. In summary, much of the responses were that the applicant did address much of our engineer's comments regarding their original stormwater report and calculations. There were, I think, 2 items that were not directly addressed, but after speaking with our engineer, one of the items they had shown that they actually had the 2 foot separation regardless of a certain method that was used, which I'll let the applicant talk about in a moment. And then the other item was in relation to, was in relation to some of the roof runoff and where it was placed. But again, they did incorporate some of the roof runoff infiltration, as you'll see it when the applicant points out shortly. And the applicant throughout their response also noted that due to the type of development, it is not required under statute to meet the stormwater standards. However, they did accommodate much of them in their last report and calculations and revised plans that they will go through this evening. I did want to note that it is mindful of them to do so and to be in compliance with the stormwater standards, because our local bylaw does consider stormwater and associated potential pollution and runoff from that as part of the interests that are protected under our local bylaw. So they were being mindful in bringing those items into consideration. So I will hand it over to Scott or Matthew Watsky, who we have on the call if the chair does not mind.
I'm fine with it. That would be excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I assume Scott Hayes is still on the call. I don't see his face right now, but I'll give a brief summary, and then if you have specific questions or you'd like Scott to elaborate on details, I'm sure he'll be happy to do that. I think Rebecca's given a reasonably good summary of where we are. A brief recap. I guess I ought to provide that to the commission. You'll recall that in prior proceedings with the commission on this project, we resolved all of the commission's questions about resource areas. So those issues were resolved. There had been questions about isolated land subject to flooding and issues such as that. So those were resolved. And then the commission had us focus on technical issues, and in particular, stormwater management and a number of questions about the proposed pervious pavement common driveway. And so your peer review engineer, Dominic Rinaldi, provided his technical peer review comments about those issues. As Rebecca has noted, Scott Hayes prepared responses to that, and there have been a number of different iterations of there's the comment and response, and then comment and a response. And so today's letter from BSC Group's Dominic Rinaldi concludes on each of the different items that he'd been reviewing that the item he considers closed. So we have addressed all of Mr. Rinaldi's technical questions. He has suggested, I believe it's 2 conditions for the commission to consider, including in an order of conditions, both of which would remain potentially in perpetuity. One of them is to require the submittal of the O&M plan to the commission, and to have that O&M plan recorded in the line of title, so that there's a requirement with that condition that the property be maintained consistent with that O&M plan in perpetuity. We can agree to that condition. That's acceptable. And his other suggestion of a potential condition was relating to the use of de-icing chemicals. As you'll recall, Scott Hayes has explained that with the use of the pervious pavement, he is not anticipating that there will be any need for either de-icing chemicals or sand or any other treatment. Just plow the snow off of it, and he wouldn't expect that there's any liquid water that would settle on the surface of the pavement that could then freeze and cause a problem. So there's no need for de-icing chemicals. Mr. Rinaldi has suggested that the commission consider specifying that non sodium chloride de-icing materials be used. And that also is an acceptable condition. I think that's what he's suggesting. Hold on, I may have. I don't want to put words in his mouth. I'm going to take a quick look at the, there we go. He says, we concur with the applicant's statement that de-icing chemicals are unlikely to be needed on the porous asphalt. However, as stated in the original comment, the commission may wish to restrict salt use within its jurisdiction through a site-specific condition. We consider this item closed. So that also, if the commission wishes to include a condition limiting the use of sodium chloride on the property, that's acceptable. That's really all I have. Scott Hayes, if there are particular details on the plans as they exist now that you'd want to bring to the attention of the commission, it's fine, jump in, or we can just leave it to the commission to ask questions, because I think you're very familiar with the site and the plan hasn't really changed in any substantive way. It's really been a back and forth between the engineers to address questions about the engineering.
Yeah, I mean, I can just give a quick little synopsis here, what's precipitated from the revisions. So, we've kind of gone back and forth a little bit on the more technical issues with the stormwater. Hasn't really resulted in any substantive change to the plan other than the addition of dry wells to lot 3. So we've added dry well. There's a dry well system there and another one adjacent to the driveway on the other side. The soils on this side of the site are more of a glacial till, so there's a bit more infrastructure for the roof drainage there because it doesn't infiltrate as quickly. So there's more infiltration system required to attenuate the storms, but that's really the substance of, other than documenting compliance and addressing the technical matters in the stormwater report. That's really the only change to the site development plan that I think was made.
Any commission members have questions? Michelle. All right. I will say I was reading through the engineer's report today. We got our engineer's report back this afternoon. So I did read through most of it. I think I understand most of it, and especially where their issues weren't taken. I was kind of running through today because I wasn't sure if we were actually going to take this up just to see if we had questions that we still needed answers or were waiting on answers. Did we ever find out what happens if we pave that driveway to the root systems of the mature trees that line it? It seemed like we were getting mixed messages on how damaging that can be to some of those mature trees. If it actually will kill some of the, do we need to think about plantings around that? Have you found any research on what we can expect will happen to the mature trees along there if we have to pave that, or if we're allowed to pave that? I just know that question was asked a few times. I don't think we ever got an answer.
Just to clarify what the chair is inquiring about, he's not inquiring about the trees that are proposed to be removed. He's inquiring about the trees that are proposed to be left at this time. Just knowing the structure of white pines, you have large shallow roots. So his inquiry is related to, if you're installing the proposed driveway, are the trees that you're currently proposing to leave, will those be impacted any way, or result in the ultimate death of those trees due to the fact that you're cutting through potentially some of their root system, or is there enough of an offset that you won't be impacting them? And that feeds into not only the buffer and adjacent upland resource area, but also the stormwater that they may be accommodating and taking care of on site for you as well.
Scott, do you want to jump in on that?
I can. I mean, I'm not an arborist, but just based on proximity, there's a number of large white pine along the driveway that are to be preserved, and we'll be working within the critical root zones of those trees. I can't say, we're not excavating very deeply into the critical root zone area. The driveway itself is currently compacted gravel. It'll need to be improved and elevated slightly. So we're not going to be, digging. I don't think we're going to be digging more than 2 feet into the ground maximum at any point in the driveway. So, we're not going to get deep into the roots. Now there are shallow roots for those trees. I think that, it may be beneficial to have an arborist monitor the excavation and advise on selective cutting of roots where they come into contact with them. Other than that, I couldn't suggest how to address it, as I am not, as I said, I'm not an arborist, but I can say that we're not going to be excessively intrusive in excavation there. So, but we are very close to a number of trees along the driveway edge. We're trying to preserve, so we wouldn't want to see them die following construction. It wouldn't benefit anyone. So, but I think it wouldn't be unreasonable or cost prohibitive to have an arborist, monitor that work and advise at the time of excavation. I work with a number of arborists, and I know that wouldn't be a huge hardship on the applicant.
Brian, would talking to the town tree warden give us that information?
I suppose it couldn't hurt to ask him. Not sure.
Just one thing to note, just for clarification purposes, that is certainly something that the commission can ask, or I can ask on behalf of the commission. But to note, this is technically outside of the tree warden's jurisdiction, being outside of the public right of way. He is a certified arborist, to my understanding, which I can double check as well. So that is his expertise regarding the health of trees and potential impacts. But just being aware that it may not fall within his jurisdiction, so it may be the same as hiring a outside contractor, just to be aware of.
Other commission members have any questions?
Just getting to that point, Brian, I know we had talked about this several times before, and the pervious driveway does require excavation. I think we said like over a foot deep. And so I think the question is, if we're cutting out, if we are cutting into a quarter of the tree's root system, how does that impact the health of the tree, right? So I don't know if it's something we would have to have someone come out and look at, but it's kind of a question, because I know we had marked, I think our question stemmed from the fact that specific trees were marked for removal, but there were trees really, really close to the proposed shared driveway that is getting wider and is going to be excavated in order to put the fill and the pervious material down. So our question was, yes, you're showing all of the trees that are to be removed, but how is this going to impact the health of the trees that are not being removed, but are still in close proximity to the driveway? And I don't think that was ever answered.
You're correct, Emily. That is an outstanding item. Thank you.
Rebecca, any members of the public have questions this evening?
Yes, Jim Garrity, if you would like to have him speak.
I would love to recognize Jim Garrity. Please, Mr. Garrity, your question.
Hi, good evening. I have a few questions on the stormwater water report. I don't know if we have that handy or not. But first question is on the pre-development, you have subcatchments, but I don't see any reaches or ponds. So my question is, as part of the model, when you have a subcatchment, you have to have a reach or a pond. And I didn't see that in any of the calculations. So that was my first question.
Okay. Mr. Waskey, Mr. Hayes, would you like to address that one, or do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, it's not uncommon to, under pre-development.
Hold on, Scott,
I'm sorry?
I'm asking Scott Hayes to hold on. If we can, Mr. Baruti.
Sure.
I would really, I'd rather have Mr. Garrity go ahead and give all of his questions at once, and then we
Sure.
can.
I'll go ahead and moderate the meeting. So if you could, Mr. Hayes, if you could answer his first question.
Sure. So under pre-development conditions, very often you do not discharge when you're modeling drainage areas that are draining to design points. You don't need a reach or a pond to receive that water to determine the amount of runoff that's coming off of that area. And all you're really evaluating is the amount of runoff going to that design point area. So there's no need for a reach or a pond under the pre-development watersheds here. Excuse me.
I guess, Scott, my concern is, how do I know that's not going to where the houses are going? How do I know the runoff isn't going to where the houses are going? You have, the model says if you do, when you do subcatchments, you have to have a reach or a pond. Where is the water going?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I was going to say, does the question make sense to you, Scott?
Not particularly, no. No.
So
I think what he's looking for is generally it's supposed to be going to a reach or a pond. If we don't have a reach or a pond where it's going to, where does it flow to in this catchment system?
It says who? Not in my experience, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be happy to, Rebecca, I can send you that information if you'd like. Next question is, when I look at the plan for the pre-development again, I'm trying to see where, it's kind of hard to see it here, Rebecca, but kind of where lot 3 is here. Is that modeled as a subcatchment at all? Because that water, no, over to where it says, actually says lot 3 written down a little bit to the left. Right there. All that, all that water goes all the way to the driveway. Is that modeled as a subcatchment at all in the pre-development or the post-development?
Yes, it is. Okay,
that's modeled as a subcatchment. Okay.
Well, the model includes areas of alteration. So we don't model on areas that aren't proposed for development. We're modeling to determine the impacts of the development on the site. So,
and where does all that water go?
Well, there's three points that the water runs to the east, to the west of the driveway. So to the I'm sorry, my pointer is not controlling the exhibit. So there's the wetland area to the east or to the right of the screen. That's a receiving area. To the pond to the west and to the rear of lot 2 is a depression, the rear of lot 2. So there were three design points that were analyzed.
Okay. Okay, my next question, and Rebecca, this is again on the plan, the stormwater plan. Does it make sense to kind of share my screen? I'm not sure. Well, I'm not really prepared for this, but I have some other questions on the post development.
Okay.
The model, when I look at, and I'm looking at my screen right here. When I look at the node modules, Scott, you have 51R, and you have water, which is in Richard's property. So that reach is on Richard's property. I don't know if that's acceptable or not, but that's where you have that modeled, is on Richard's property. And then you have water going from a subcatchment basically in lot 2, going all the way over to 51, which is on Richard's property. I'm not sure how the water flows all the way from lot 2 all the way onto Richard's property in the model. Can you help me understand that?
Mr. Chairman, we wish
Go
to
ahead.
have Hayes respond.
Please.
Sorry, waiting for me to respond. The reaches and the post-development are there as design tools for combining flows between what's overland flow runoff and what's discharge runoff. So we've got you've got the driveway itself is modeled as a pond. It provides infiltration below the surface of the driveway, and there's a reservoir under there with storage, and it actually attenuates a 100-year storm, which is pretty substantial. So you've got the driveway that discharges to a reach, and I don't know the reach number off the top of my head, but the reach to the west toward the pond is there as a tool to evaluate the effectiveness of the porous asphalt system, and to ensure that it doesn't overflow. There's not a surcharge of water where it exceeds the capacity of the driveway to hold water and infiltrate it and discharge it. So the reach actually going toward the west of the pond actually never receives any flow. It's there as an engineering design tool to make sure that we've adequately sized the reservoir for the driveway. So, and similarly for the other reaches, they're combining overflow from roof runoff systems and overland flow. It's the combined flow to the pre-development design area, so that we can compare apples to apples pre and post. But I guess that's the simplest explanation I can give with respect to that.
Yeah, that's why I was asking why you didn't have reaches or ponds in the pre-development, right? So you could do apples to apples.
You could, but they would. If you added a reach to the pre-development watersheds, they would show the same exact numbers that are discharging from the subcatchment. So there's no point to having them.
Okay, so thank you. So speaking of the driveway, you have it modeled as both a subcatchment and also a pond, and that also discharges into a reach, which is in the Danforth Brook. Do we want water going off the asphalt driveway into the Danforth, water going off the asphalt driveway into the Danforth Brook?
It is not.
Okay, it's modeled that way.
Well, the reach is there as a design tool. It does not receive any water. It's there to show that we're not exceeding the capacity of the driveway to attenuate water. If you look in the post-development calculations, reach, I don't know the reach number there, but the reach towards Danforth Brook from the driveway, there's 0 CFS, 0 acre feet. Every design storm analyzed, no discharge to that area. But in the design process, there is discharge there. So you're constantly modeling the pond, the driveway, you're changing the stone reservoir size and depth and other things to design it to attenuate. So it was there to basically check. As soon as we didn't get a discharge to the reach, we've accomplished our goal with the driveway. It's really just a technical engineering design tool.
So it doesn't really do anything. It's just a mathematical model that
no,
doesn't really do anything.
No, the
Mr.
post-development reaches don't do anything. They're just a tool to combine and compare to the pre-development.
All right, just last question. Did you do a model on the Danforth Brook?
What?
No,
Okay, so it's not gonna, we don't know if it's gonna overflow the driveway and go into the lot?
Nope.
Oh, Scott,
You're on,
muted.
Scott, you're on mute, sorry.
can't read lips. We have less runoff flowing toward the Danforth Brook under post-development conditions with the porous asphalt driveway. It's doing a great job of attenuating and recharging.
I think, Scott and Mr. Chair, if I may, what the applicant is inquiring about is if you had reviewed the brook itself regarding flood conditions that are becoming more regular as time goes on here, unfortunately, to see how it would then impact the driveway that you are trying to accommodate stormwater from your development itself, but seeing how it may be impacted from the brook. So I think versus showing what post-development is doing to the brook, what maybe the brook will be doing to the infrastructure. Is that what you're looking for, Jim? Was that your question?
Yes, thank you for articulating that.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Right.
Well, I can speak to that briefly. I mean, so we have a regulatory floodway associated with Danforth Brook. We're not altering any area within the flood zone of Danforth Brook. And we're not increasing the stormwater discharge to that area. We're basically maintaining or slightly reducing the volume and rate of runoff to that area by the stormwater controls. So I think we've adequately addressed that.
So, and I appreciate that. And again, through you, Mr. Chair, what the concern of the applicant, excuse me, the abutter seems to be, and what I believe was brought up many times ago by the commission, was knowing that this area is in the regulatory floodway or adjacent to it, and knowing that we're seeing increases in the use just regularly and the use being just with increased precipitation events, we're seeing that regulatory floodway utilized to capacity much more frequently. Did you therefore model how that impact just naturally occurring may impact the development and understand impacts to the infrastructure that you're proposing and of course the residences that would potentially be there? And again, that's relevant to our local bylaw and protecting those interests. But I was just curious if that was considered as part of that assessment.
Well, I think it's inherently included in the stormwater design. I mean, we've really done a very extensive evaluation of runoff and from the site, and we've maximized recharge through the dry wells and the driveway system. So all I can tell you is we've less runoff post-development from developing the site by implementing these BMPs. We have less volume and less and slower rate. So that's a great accomplishment for a site like this.
Yes, and I'm not diminishing that, the amount of work you've done trying to assess that and trying to establish that within your design, and the commission appreciates that. But again, the commission is trying to look out for the interest in the local bylaw that could be impacted naturally, that you may need to protect. Like I'm looking at lot 3 in particular, and then the common driveway, maybe it's functioning itself because it's a porous material. But just knowing that the way that area floods and uses that floodplain to capacity That's what I'm referring to. Maybe I'm not relaying it properly, but I understand you've looked at the impact that your proposed development has on the brook. But I think in this particular site, in particular with the driveway and lot 3 specifically, there's a concern for the floodwaters that we've been seeing potentially, and in the future continuing to use that floodplain to capacity, and then therefore be impacting that infrastructure that you're installing. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, that's fine. I'll
Well,
try.
no, I mean, sure, so I mean, we've got regulatory floodplain on on lot in the area of lot 3 in the common driveway. So the septic systems are built up, the houses are built up, the basement floors are above the 100-year flood elevation. There's a bit of fill associated with development of the lots, which is primarily occurring outside the buffer zone. But yeah, I mean, that's been incorporated into the design, certainly.
Thank you.
Other members of the public with questions?
Richard has a question.
All right, please.
I'm kind of a broken record here. These back depressions that we originally started with, where this excavation was done. Mr. Chairman, given the studies, the modeling that's been done thus far, what we've been told by the engineers is there should be no water in there. That's my understanding. Okay, I mean, it was like a 7-year or a 100-year 7-inch rain event. That's the only time we would see 1/2 inch of water over there, no more than that. And I tell you, I walk and look, and there's lots of water there. And how do we continue to just ignore this? I'm not talking about a little puddle here, a little puddle there. It is a substantial amount of water. And why isn't this being addressed? I mean, if you want to come to my house anytime after a rainstorm, or go to, I'm sure Jim would be happy to have you stand and peer down into these areas. There's a lot of water there. And the modeling says there shouldn't be any, but there is. And I'm not splitting hairs here. There's a lot of water. So back to the driveway. Okay. I keep hearing that, that this driveway can hold a lot of water. In the wintertime, last Christmas, we had a couple of inches of rain, and Jim and I walked back and forth up and down the driveway. If you stepped off of the gravel, the pine needles at the side, I mean, the water was like 2 inches deep. It just seems to me that that's going to fill up whatever is below the driveway very quickly, very, very quickly. And the other thing about the drive, permeable. Is it really going to stay permeable? We don't know that. In ideal conditions, yes, it will. But we're talking about lots and lots of pine needles, with how many cars driving back and forth across those pine needles every single day, driving them, grinding them up into dust, all kinds of tree pollen, fallen branches that get ground. That's all going to compromise the efficacy of the permeable driveway. So if we're counting on the driveway to do it, well, should we? Should we really count on it? So those are that's my one thought, but I'm just really flummoxed by the amount of water that's in these back 2 depressions. And it looks to me like an awful lot of fill is going to be brought in to fill those things in. And that just seems to be really contrary to what wetlands protection seems to be all about. I mean, the other thing, yeah, I see where the green line is on my property, and that's supposed to be real wetlands there, to the east of that line. Okay, to a degree it is, but it doesn't compare to the amount of water that's in these depressions. Doesn't compare. If you see where the wetlands are delineated with the red tags, back on the Boy Scout property. Once again, the amount of water in these depressions compared to what's in the Boy Scouts, no comparison. It's a huge difference. I just don't see how we can continue to ignore this. Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may, one point.
Please.
I wanted to just clarify one statement that was made quickly before the commission addresses the rest of the questions, or the applicant potentially address the rest of the questions. Neither engineer said that water shouldn't exist within there, and the applicant's engineer can correct me if I'm wrong in relaying this. What they stated was using the model as it is required under the state regulations. It doesn't mean that enough runoff is going there to meet that standard or qualification for that specific resource area. They did say that because of groundwater, the groundwater may be coming up through in that way, not in a freshwater seep manner where it's a small localized area. But they never, in my understanding, and from what I've been hearing from these meetings, did they say water should not be there at all. And that water is not there because you physically can't say that. As you've stated, the abutter, direct abutter, Jim, and you yourself have observed water in these pools. I've observed water, other people have observed water there. At some point, again, not to the extent that the abutters have, but I believe everyone's on the same page that there has been water in these pools at some point. So it's meeting those standards. It's what our engineers were referring to. And there are particular measurements and particular models that are used in specific ways. Jim had already brought up the point about using different numbers bring about different results. Fine, but there are certain standards set forward that our engineers need to follow, both ours and the applicant, and that is what they were referring to. There was no statement made that said there is never any water in these pools, and I just want to clarify that for the record. I do know that, again, water has been observed in these two depressional areas, but again, utilizing the model that is part of the requirement, and I stress the part of the requirement, it is the requirement under the state regs, but it's part of our local bylaw requirement. It doesn't need it using that model. So I will hand it back over to the commission, but I think that's important to note and to make sure that the engineer's interpretation was not misspoken.
Can I reply?
Please.
Well, am I the only one that remembers discussion about a 100-year rain event, which would be 7 inches, that there would not be any more than a half an inch of water in those depressions?
Again,
due
to those models.
Pardon me?
Rich, due to the models that they're required to use as engineers. Right. We're not saying during a 100-year event, physically someone out there observing. That was not the statement that was made, and I want to clarify that for multiple purposes.
Honestly, it was my understanding that after a 7-inch rainstorm, the maximum amount of water that should be in there was half an inch. That's what the model said. Do you recall this differently, Rebecca?
No, I'm stating that is what the model is saying. I'm stating that we've brought up multiple times that may be not what is being observed. I'm agreeing with you, Richard, but I'm stating that it is the model being used that is required by the engineers to conduct that analysis. If the commission had requested someone to go out there and observe, that's a different story. And that's why I'm explicitly making that difference and trying to make that clear, which the commission has the ability to do. But what I'm stating is those are two separate things. One was the modeling, that's part of the state regulations in our local bylaw. There's
Right.
another aspect under a local bylaw that does incorporate observations, and I think it's important that you're bringing that up. But I want to make it clear that our engineers, both our peer reviewer and the applicant's engineer, follow the correct procedure to get that result. And unfortunately, sometimes, as we've seen, there are other situations on site that appear to not match up. Meaning the high groundwater or the groundwater at the time or different times throughout the year, which our engineers both acknowledged.
Does that help a little bit, Richard?
Not really, I'm sorry.
I-
I mean, I would really, Brian, I would love it if you would go out there after like
I-
a 2-inch rainstorm and, you know, go out there and walk around, put your muck boots on and say,
100%. And that's my issue. And Rebecca, maybe you could help me because I'm just not sure how we could do this time frame wise. Because Richard, I do, and to the applicants, I keep coming back to that, right? We had that issue and we talked it round and round, but it doesn't change the factor that the calculations say, you know, this shouldn't pond to this extent here. And we have visual observations in the field saying, yeah, this did pond to this extent here. And our bylaws are saying we can use either visual observation or calculations. It doesn't say one trumps the other. It says we can use either or to determine. But when we have two that are diametrically opposed, just the way my brain works, what I want to say is, all right, as soon as there's a 100-year flood event, I will make the time. I will go out there. You know, can the applicant's engineer show up there? Can people show up on the day of the 100-year storm event? And we'll actually take a look and all agree to what actually happens in the field, you know, physically happens there. It's just a question of timing. I'm not sure how I could set that and say, well, we just have to wait for another 100-year storm event. Now, we all know climate's changing. The 100-year storm event takes place about every 10 years now. So it's not like we have to wait 90 years. I just don't know how we can plan to observe after that type of storm event without just leaving it kind of open-ended for an extreme point, possibly extreme amount of time. Does that make sense, Richard?
yes,
I'm not ignoring what you're bringing up. I'm just trying to figure out the solution in my head as to how to make these two things work together or how to figure out the best solution.
I mean, trying to wait for a 100-year event, that seems like a pretty long horizon. But, you know, if there was a 2-inch rain event and you went out there, once again, you know, with your muck boots and you're walking through this water, not just kind of standing at the edge, I mean, you'll really get a sense as to how much water is really in there. I mean, there's tons of water there now. And we also can't forget, you know, part of this equation that so much of that was excavated, you know, completely turned over and so forth. And, you know, what does that do to the permeability, you know, of the soil? To me, it seems like it would make it much more permeable. And it's an alteration of the site that it shouldn't have been, it shouldn't have happened. And you guys should have been called in from the get-go and you weren't.
And if I remember correctly, Richard, that's still an outstanding question. We did go back and forth. We did have calculations run to see if it could have been terraformed to the extent to change the soil conditions.
Right.
And, you know, you can argue with those findings, but basically they said no. But as part of that, we did ask when that terraforming was done before we were called in, how much was done, what was done, what was the purpose of what was done, was anything brought off site, in which case can we get the receipts for that, was anything brought on site, in which case can we get the receipts for that. Those questions have never been addressed. I still don't know why it was terraformed and what was done.
Yeah. Well, I
so
would hope
those are outstanding questions that we're still awaiting answers on. So it's not a dead issue.
Good. Good.
Disagree.
Thank you, Brian.
As far as waiting on a storm event, Rebecca, I'm not sure. Is that something that has been done? Can it be done? Go ahead.
So that's the issue we have here, is what's being observed physically on site and the model where it contradicts what results the model came up with. And again, groundwater plays a role in that. And I did review our bylaw regulations. It does talk about groundwater and does incorporate that into the definition that we're looking at. However, it has to be observed during a 100-year flood storm event that's determined either by visual observations or the calculation. So in this situation where it doesn't seem to agree, I don't have an answer for that, unfortunately, because you can't wait for a 100-year storm event. You can't predict when a 100-year storm event is going to occur. And it just creates, as you stated, a timeline that's unknown, and having someone available for that 100-year storm event to go run out while it's occurring or after or just before, it's very difficult to do and coordinate. And so unfortunately, I do not have an answer for that as to how to address that, other than say, yes, there is water within those areas. The model does not state that it should be meeting the requirements or the standards set forward under the state regulations and then a portion of our local regulation. But we do have photos and videos and evidence that it does certainly pond in those areas. So that's at the commission's discretion to address, but I unfortunately do not have good guidance on how to proceed.
Last fall. Last fall.
Go ahead. Let Mr. Watsky speak for a second.
Okay,
please.
Well, no, I'm happy to have Mr. Davis finish, and so I would prefer that we have the public comment completed, and then I'd like an opportunity for us as the applicant's representatives to respond to these issues.
Sure. So, Mr. Davis, did you have another question that you wanted?
Wanted to kind of follow up once again with what Rebecca said. Last fall, we were talking about this having been a historic drought, kind of period, last summer and last fall. So we get up to around Christmas time, and that's probably when we saw a lot of water, in those depressions. Well, now this summer, we've had lots and lots of rain. Now there's a lot of vegetation in these depressions. It's kind of hard to see. And since there's all these no trespassing signs, it's not like I can go in there, and start measuring things. But I don't see why we have to wait for a 100-year flood event. If we have, 2 inches of rain, I'm sure all of you would like to put this project to bed. We've been working on this for years at this point, and anything that you could do. I mean, if you went out there and said, oh my goodness, there's all kinds of, observational water here that's deep. You can walk from this side to this side, and then it would just be kind of clear to the commission rather than, relying on my photos and trying to decide how to weigh that. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. And can I ask Mr. Watsky, I want to let you get to what you were saying, but as the applicants here, have you seen that ponding? I mean, you guys have been out on site. Have you seen significant ponding, significant water in those areas?
You talking to me?
Yeah. I mean, I've observed it in the field, like Mr. Davis said, it's no trespassing, which I 100% respect, but I'm assuming you care about our natural environment. When you go out there, are you seeing the type of flooding that he's seeing and that he's documented? Have you physically seen that type of flooding?
Mr. Berube, you're posing a question to Scott Hayes.
To you, actually, Mr. Watsky. I'm not sure if you've been out on site.
No, I haven't gone out to the site after.
All right. And so the same question to Scott. I don't want to give you a chance to answer them all, but same question to Scott Hayes. Have you seen that type of flooding or ponding that Mr. Davis is?
Yeah, I've been out a few times, not in some time, but after rain events, different times of the year. It's a curious place. So based on our calculations, obviously on stormwater, we got one result. We also did test holes out there, and the estimated seasonal high water isn't within the regime of the bottom of those depressed areas. So, any groundwater contribution shouldn't be breaking the surface out there. I think we had 18 or 24 inches to estimated seasonal water in the test pits we dug there. I mean, my best guess is, seasonally you get water, you get frozen conditions in an organic soil, it temporarily ponds water, where it slowly filters through the soil in those areas. I think that the calculations and the observations can be correlated. It's just, there's.
Haven't been explained how yet.
The time of year, it depends on the rain event. I mean, there's a lot of factors involved, but we established
If I may, Scott, let me just step in for a second.
Please go ahead, Mr. Watsky.
So I ask the commissioners to remember that this view of this project didn't move on into the technical aspects of the stormwater management and the function of the porous pavement and the like, until after we had finished a very detailed review to determine whether the depressions on the property, on the north end of the property, were jurisdictional or not. And there was extensive analysis with your peer review engineer and with Scott Hayes having done the analysis on the property and of those areas, and applying the very specific criteria both under the DEP wetlands protection regs and under your bylaw with your definition of what's a land subject to flooding or inundation that has to be 1,000 square feet or greater in surface area and hold an average of 6 inches depth. And they did very detailed survey work. They determined where observationally the maximum extent of flooding, and so the maximum depth of flooding.
You don't need to read us the full report, Mr. Watsky. What I would say about that, and what Scott just said, is again, the calculations don't meet with the observations. And I haven't been told why. I've been told it could be this, it could be that. And what I'm telling you, when you just went into what our bylaw states about the land subject to flooding, I'm telling you our bylaw states it can be done via visual observation or calculation. It does not say one trumps the other. It does not say either or. It says we can use either method. And I have two methods in front of me. Your calculation saying one thing, physical observations in the field saying something else. And I need to figure out the answer to that. Is where I'm stuck right now. And I understand that report came in, all the calculations were done. Still doesn't change, what the lab says should happen and what happens in real life. You got to go with real life. I mean, this is what actually happened out there, not what the lab says should happen. Do you understand? I'm trying to find a way that I can take that information and actually see what's real. So I guess that's what we're getting at.
Mr. Chair, just
Go
one
ahead.
point that Mr. Watsky made that I want to just confirm to the commission. So during that analysis, you are correct that under the Wetlands Protection Act, it was clarified that no, this is not jurisdictional under the Wetlands Protection Act. At that time, we did not go on to confirm that all resource areas related to the land subject to flooding or inundation by groundwater or surface water under a local bylaw, we did not specify that that did not apply because of the observational I'm going to say contradiction in the field to what was found through the models and the soil tests. So you are partly correct there, but I just want to clarify that.
Well, if I may, because I
Please
think
continue.
I
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I had the floor. And I would like to invite Scott Hayes to step in, but the survey work that was done and the analysis that was done was used two different methods. The first, they did just calculations based on the soils and a calculation of the watershed, but they also calculated the depth of water based on the highest observed level of flooding in those areas, with the evidence being any evidence of flooding on the edges of it. You can have debris that's washed up along the edges, and the average depth was less than 6 inches, and that therefore the areas were not jurisdictional under either the state act or under your local bylaw. And so that was something that in fact was reviewed, and the commission concluded that there was no further issue. And it was only after we resolved that issue that we moved on into all of the rest of the technical details here. So I'm happy to have Scott Hayes sort of refresh your memory on the conclusions we reached, it's probably 6 months ago now, about how that issue was resolved between him and Dominic Rinaldi. Scott, could you please jump in on this?
Mr. Chair, quickly before that, that is, again, the applicant has stated the conclusions that they had come to. I'm not denying the conclusions that they had come to. What I'm stating is the commission did not realize or make a vote to establish that it was jurisdictional under the bylaw, is all I am saying. I'm not questioning the analysis that you had done. I understand the work you had put in. The other item I want to note is you're talking about observations of evidence of flooding, which is something that's typical looked at in the field when you're doing delineations of wetlands, of flood areas, etc. However, again, bringing up the excavation that occurred, if you're going to start talking about not actual water elevations in the area that are occurring currently, and you're going to talk about what's existing and what's there to show where it floods regularly, then we need to go back to the fact that this area was excavated and material removed. So from that standpoint, I think that's why the commission is focusing and trying to focus on the conversation about observing it during the 100-year storm event, to try and resolve this matter without going too far back down that rabbit hole, to be completely honest, because that's a whole issue that had impacted these areas, and it's proven because there's photos that the area was excavated. So I understand the analysis was done. I'm not questioning an analysis was done. We were all here for it. We were here participating in the meeting. What I am stating is the commission confirmed it was not jurisdictional under the State Wetlands Protection Act. What I'm saying the commission did not confirm was whether or not it was jurisdictional under a local bylaw. Whether you had reached that conclusion or not, that is fine.
I respectfully disagree. There was no further issue about jurisdiction remaining at the time when we moved on into the further technical review. And
I don't, honestly, and I'm not going to argue with Mr. Watsky because we're really out of time for this right now tonight. I will go back and look. I honestly don't remember us voting on anything. I don't think there's been an official vote on this that we voted on and memorialized and said anything was settled. You know, we've talked things along the way. Again, yeah, there's lots of questions with this project, but I honestly don't remember us voting. I will go look. I will go back and review the tapes and look at the minutes and see if it was. We're just running into a time crunch tonight. I need to get people off this meeting eventually. That said, would it be possible to continue this to the next meeting? I will go ahead and review, and I'd like to look through a lot of what our engineers had to say. I did read through it quickly today, but we did just get it basically today. Would you mind if we continue until next month, or next meeting, 2 weeks?
I guess I'd have to ask to what end, because we have the peer review engineer opinion to you now saying that all of his technical issues he considers closed. And so
sure, we had questions about the trees along the driveway. We had questions about the excavation that was done in the past. Again, what was done, what was taken out, what was brought in, what was the purpose of the excavations. We had those questions. We had questions about trees along the driveway. kind of getting answers on some of those. And again, I will go back to look to see if we had settled or not, if under the bylaw, we said that, this wasn't land subject to flooding. I guess those are the three things I can think of offhand, reason to continue, but
Brian,
it's
I haven't
really-
had time
It's
to
your
read.
call. I'm up against the time crunch.
Right. What's your continuance date, sir?
It would be October 5th.
That's fine. Are you able to give a specific time so that I can put it in?
Yeah, Rebecca, are we up to 8:15? Is that our next slot? Okay, all right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for Century Mill Road, map 3.D, parcel 75, till our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 5th at 8 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
8:15 PM, Brian.
At 8:15 p.m. My apologies. Do I hear a second for continuing to 8:15 p.m. on October 5th, 2021?
A second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an I myself.
Thank you,
Oh,
folks.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Rebecca, are you ready to move on? Or let me know when you're ready.
Yes, I am ready.
All right. Can you give us an update on Sugar Road?
Yes. So the enforcement order, correct?
Correct. Yes. Sorry.
So relevant to this item, during the flash flood that occurred on September 3rd, 2021, a culvert and driveway associated with 542 Sugar Road had failed and the roadway therefore became undermined. Not roadway, the driveway to this home became undermined, and the individual could not access their home. So therefore, the chair, myself, and the town secretary worked collectively to coordinate issuing an enforcement order so that they could do a temporary repair and then work toward a permanent resolution to restore their driveway and repair the culvert. The culvert will be upgraded to stream crossing standards due to the fact that it is a perennial stream underneath, and therefore they will be submitting associated engineered plans for the permanent resolution. However, the matter this evening is just to have the commission memorialize the enforcement order that was issued and signed by our chair, which occurs in emergency circumstances at times so that the individual can work diligently and efficiently to continue the repair work after such an emergency that occurs.
Well stated. Do members of the commission understand that? Basically, okay. Rebecca, in order to put this enforcement order out, is there any official language, or can I simply reference the enforcement order as drafted and discussed at this evening's meeting?
I would, vote to issue the enforcement order after the fact, again, just noting that it was issued on September 3rd, and that it shall be signed by a quorum of the Conservation Commission.
Okay, in that case, I'd like to make a motion, or I would like to call a roll call vote for issuing an enforcement order for 542 Sugar Road for the September 3rd incident as discussed at this evening's meeting. Did I miss anything there, Rebecca? I'm sorry.
Nope.
All right. All those in favor of issuing this enforcement order, say aye, and we will do it via roll call, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca. Let's make it unanimous. I'm an I myself.
Wonderful, thank you. And I would ask, so we have Brian's signature already, as I previously stated, because he is our chair. If the other members would come and sign the document tomorrow, it will be in the Dropbox, probably around 9 o'clock. So anytime after 9, that would be appreciated. And I will send you an email reminder. Would you like me to summarize this item?
I would love for you to. Oh, that's our last one. Yes, please.
Okay, great. So this item is relative to, it's very basic and general regarding the visual, but I did send you some supplemental information in emails. This is relative to the trail extending from Woodside Drive into the Vaughn Hill Conservation Area. Here, towards the bottom of the screen is the intersection that one trail, or rather two trail segments, lead to the pond. And then this segment leads to North Peak up here, just to orient yourselves if you're familiar with the property. The areas that we're focusing on, here's Woodside Drive here. Vaughn Hill Road runs this way. The trail from Woodside Drive to this green parcel here, the green parcel is owned by the town, held under the Conservation Commission. This section of trail is an easement over two private parcels. So this area here, of course, we would reach out to the private property owner, but first we need authorization from the Conservation Commission. The local trails committee is bringing this forward. Just maintenance items related to, again, this trail section circled under 1. We're looking to install water bars to try to accommodate some of the runoff that we're seeing and the wear on the trail itself. It's an old cart track, so it does have somewhat of a basin-like structure along the trail. So the water, of course, focuses towards the center of that trail and continues down, carrying materials with it. There is a brook that runs along the side of that trail. It is, I believe, a intermittent stream technically, but it does run throughout most of the year. This trail section, again, we'd have to go to the private property owners to just confirm that they're aware of the maintenance going on. But again, here proposed is water bars. In this area as well, a couple water bars may be necessary to just try and redirect some of the water that comes down the main trail, which is the path of least resistance typically, before it gets to this down gradient slope. Now in section, are there any questions on 1? Okay. On section 2 here, it is a wet area. It is not a wetland resource area. It's just a slightly lower area that sometimes pools in the spring after we've had rain events, or of course in the winter. Again, it's not a vernal pool. It's not a wetland resource area. So in this area here, there are individuals who have already started grading the trail, so trying to go around the wet area. So the commission can either authorize the rerouting to the area that's already been established by individuals avoiding the wet area, and then we would brush in the existing trail. Or what we can do is add some material to the trail and then close off the braided area to either side of the trail to keep where it is existing, which people are familiar with traveling on, but also to add some material and brush it in a little bit so that we can accommodate individuals versus walking through mud, essentially. Any questions from the commission?
I don't, those seem like smart ways to go for that. And I know this area well, and I can see how it's been kind of sloughing off a bit. I don't have issue with what's being proposed. I think it makes sense to me. Other commission members? Rebecca, any members of the public here tonight to comment on this?
Nope, it is just us and David.
And I'm guessing David would have commented if he had thoughts on. All right. Basically, you would need a roll call vote to authorize the trail committee to do the maintenance that is being proposed tonight. Okay.
Yes.
All right, in
Please.
that case, I'd like to call a vote to authorize the trail maintenance and upgrades that are being proposed at this evening's meeting at the Vaughn Hill Conservation Area. All those in favor say aye, and we'll do it via roll call, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Hi.
and Rebecca. I am, and I myself.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
No, thank the Trail Committee.
I will extend that thank you to them.
Have people had an opportunity to look through our September 7th meeting minutes? And if so, any changes, typos, issues, or does anybody need more time to look through them? Not hearing any. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for our September 7th, 2021 meeting as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for that?
I second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Hi.
and I am, and I myself.
Wonderful. Would you like me to run down the updates?
I think that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Perfect. So the Still River Trail Steward update is still on here. Sorry, I should have just kept it as Still River Trail as I did on the agenda. Essentially for that particular item, we are looking to do the Still River Trail or the section through the Taggart property as our September guided walk. So those interested in exploring the new trail that the commission just approved at a couple meetings past, that will most likely be the last weekend of September, most likely on a Thursday, but I'm still finalizing that date where I will be leading individuals out on the trail. We'll be talking about the ecological and historical aspects that are on that property. The other item is the MVP program action grant project that we've recently started with Clinton, which is the Nashua River Communities Resilient Lands Management Project. There will be a project website similar to the Apple Country website. We still encourage you to use the Apple Country site itself. Again, we will be partnering with Clinton on this project, but we will be reaching out to various residents and community members to participate in core teams, and then of course, focus groups associated with that project. So if you are interested, please let me know. And if you're interested in potentially being part of one of those groups, also let me know. That is all I have for today.
Excellent. And anybody watching who's interested in being a member of the Conservation Commission, also please let Rebecca know.
Yes, please do.
Okay. Any other business or new business from members of the commission? All right, hearing none. I would like to make a motion that we hereby adjourn the September 21st, 2021 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second for adjourning?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Hi.
and Rebecca, I am, and I as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you all, everybody. Yeah, I was to say, I'll see everybody eventually. We have a bunch of site visits coming up. And don't forget to sign things at Town Hall. Or
Yes,
Rebecca will
sign
come to your
things at
house.
Town Hall. And I will, if there's ever an issue and you can't get to Town Hall and it's during my working hours, even maybe slightly after, I am happy to accommodate you when I can. So please, if it's an issue, just email me or call and we will coordinate.
Rebecca,
Yes.
are you free tomorrow afternoon?
Yes, I think so.
Send
I
me
think
an
so.
email. Let me know what your availability is.
Okay, we
Thank you.
will coordinate on that tomorrow.
Thank you.
No problem. Additionally, please check your emails tomorrow because I'll be asking about site visit times. So check your calendars, please. And I look forward to speaking with you that way.
Excellent. All right, thank you.
Good night.
Take care,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.